My name is Andrew Bremberg, and I am the president of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. I think today's rally is so important to commemorate the 23rd anniversary of this horrible persecution of the Falun Gong by the Chinese Communist Party. Not just in terms of the overall persecution, but particularly the horrific human rights abuses taking place around the practice of forced organ harvesting. I think it's an important movement that those in the West need to learn more about those advocating for people to quit the CCP, which is so important. So many Americans are unaware of the brutality by the Chinese Communist Party taking place today, and that by far the biggest victims of the Chinese Communist Party are the Chinese people themselves. Well, we will have to see. The power of the people to combat totalitarianism is vitally important. As the president of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, we educate Americans about all the victims of communism through the last century. A lot of time is spent talking about the victims of Soviet communism. But as we saw, the end of Soviet communism came when the people, through civil society, through non-political organizations, came together to demand change, to demand freedom, and to demand to the end of communism in Europe. So, of course, the hope and prayer is that for the people of China, that they will find the ways to come together through civil society to demand freedom and change and the end to the CCP. While we can certainly hope that the brutality we've seen under Xi Jinping can be reduced under changes within the Communist Party, ultimately that's no solution, because communism in all of its ways and forms always means totalitarianism and the abuse of human rights. So ultimately we must work and hope for a day in China that all of China will be free of the Chinese Communist Party. Well, I think the United States can do so much to help address the human rights challenges in China. One, we can speak out more clearly to China's officials directly and to our partners internationally and demand that they take action and sanction individuals in China that are personally responsible for these human rights violations. As we discussed here, we can pass the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act that is before the Congress right now to hopefully end the horrible abuses of forced organ harvesting. And there's so much that we can do. We can educate the American people to recognize that we should not be financially invested in the Chinese Communist Party, and that we need to make sure that we are ethically sourcing and buying products that are not made from forced labor, whether it be Xinjiang or in other parts of China, where millions of Chinese are subjected to forms of forced labor or slavery, and that we need to be careful about not buying and putting our money into products that are funding the Chinese Communist Party.